With 5 races still remaining in the iRacing Drivers' World Championship, Gregor Huttu still has not clinched first place. But considering the utter domination of this series with 13 wins from 13 poles, it could just be a formality before he does. However, don't count out Richard Thaler just yet. He is still fast. Just 11 short hours ago, Richard Thaler did get ahead of Huttu at the start lights of the Intel GP Masters Series and was able to hold off the Finn to win his right to go to Germany in March and fight for the best in the world face-to-face. But what was once the dominant Team Redline of the first half of the series, the second half has seen a real charge by Team Orion. Ilka Happela, Sean Purdy, Vergers, Marsh, all looking very strong after the release of the new aero and transmission package just a few weeks ago. But now they are not just trying to eclipse the junior members of Team Redline, they are often finding themselves battling each other on the track. We'll see how it all plays out as we start round 14 here at historic Silverstone on PSR TV. I'm Tom Beatty, glad to be back after a long hiatus with computer issues, with Simon Smith, Chuck Johnson, and of course Ian Bushin pulling the strings back in the studio. Simon, qualifying has just ended. There is a kink in Huttu's armor. The Finn is not going to start on the pole for the first time this entire series.
I know, shock horror. I don't quite know what's happened in the world, but for the first time ever, Richard Thaler is on pole and Gregor Huttu has been defeated by a whole 0.08 of a second. And I think Silverstone is going to be a little fly potentially in the ointment. Maybe we had the first chink in the armour earlier today when if you was watching live on PSR TV, you saw for the first time on broadcasted TV at least, Richard Thaler getting the first upper hand over Huttu. Maybe the tail is between his legs. Maybe he's not quite at full strength, but Richard Thaler is here to show that he absolutely means business here today, Tom.
Yeah, it sure is. It was really a really fantastic race this morning. I appreciate having to get up at 6 o'clock to do it. But let's really quick run through the qualifying order while we wait for the cars to take the grid. On pole for the first time this season. Took him 14 races, but now Richard Thaler takes the pole from England with a time of 129.519. Gregor Huttu right behind him at 129.592. That's .073 of a second between first and second. Ilka Happela, as we mentioned in the intro, is in third place. Newcomer, or at least somebody who hasn't made the races very often this season, Jesse Nemenian, is in fourth. Sean Purdy, another Team Orion driver, as well as Dion Vergers in sixth place. Ben Cornett in seventh. Jake Sturgis in eighth. Darren Marsh in ninth. David Serwa in 10th.
Okay, starting from P11 downwards, we've got Darren Marsh in 11, Ian Lake will be 12, Brad Davies will be 13 with Derek Wood 14, David Serroy in 15, Matteo Calistani 16, Rayan Fowler 17, Matson 18, Brian Hiakotter 19, and Milos Miokovic in 20th with George Sandman, Daniel Almeida, Tim Holgate 23rd, Ali Simunek will be 24 with Ryan Murray, Florian Goddard, Gerd Hoffler, Richard Crozier, right down in 28 there. That's a surprise for Richard Crozier to be down there. Dave Hoffman, 29, Mark Payne, 30, Paul Richards, newcomer, 21st, John Prather, 22, Jan Ziliakis, 30. Andrea Boldi rounds off the grid, 34 starters for this historic Silverstone track. And we've got a lap of Silverstone.
Yes, we do. It's a big wide track, lots of fast sweepers, a couple of tight turns, a couple of good passing zones. One of them specifically down at the end of Hanger Straight into Stowe. That's going to be a good one. Possibly Vale, if he can get a good run out of Stowe. Vale is a good passing zone. Possibly Abbey, but that's a tricky one there. But what we've seen, one of the things we noticed this morning during the Grand Prix Masters race is it really took a good start by Richard Thaler to get in front of Huttu, and then he was forced to keep him behind the entire time. It's going to be interesting to see, since that race this morning, really, you just needed to finish in the top four, and I wonder if Huttu wasn't just patient to take that position, and if he wouldn't be a little more aggressive to try and get around Thaler today or this evening in these cars, since the stakes are a little bit higher.
Absolutely. Well, we'll soon find out. Not too far left to go until the pace car pulls in, and we have absolute, well, nutcaseness going down into turn 1, which of course is not always the best place to be overtaking around the Silverstone circuit. However, it is a very good place to make a mistake, and if you run right and catch that curb on the exit of the opening corner, then you will find yourself swallowed up into the complex that follows.
Yes, and that complex is those famous fast sweepers of Maggots and Beckett's as they head out onto Hanger Straight. That's a very difficult place to go side by side. So once they get out of Copse, they need to definitely line up to get through Maggots and Beckett's, or they're going to really find themselves in a world of hurt as they go into those fast sweepers.
Yeah, you can't have a slow accident through any of those corners whatsoever. You can't really have a slow accident anywhere around this track at all. And it's all very well if you do it wrong through bridges. I know around this particular iRacing laser scan circuit that bridge is kind of a good one to go flat out in, but there's always a little bump that can always take you unawares if you're not paying attention.
So keep in mind as we watch the cars down Farm Straight as they head into Abbey, take a look at this is the last incarnation. We all know that if we watch Formula One this year that Silverstone has a new profile, an absolutely glorious profile. I really do like the changes to the new Silverstone, but this is the old track, the 2002 to 2009 track. So these drivers are heading now into Priory as they get ready to take a flying start here around Silverstone. Just keep that in mind, something to be aware of. They may, once all of the updates are finished, they've told us before that a lot of these updated tracks, they will get a chance to rescan. As the cars come out of Woodcut now, head down the start-finish straightaway, Richard Towler is going to lead them away for the first time this season in that orange Whiskey River car. Gregor Huttu starting in the unfamiliar second place. Richard Towler gets an amazing jump, probably just giving himself an insurance policy. Let's take a look. Ilkka Happila comes into third place in that blue and white car. And it looks like we may have some trouble in turn 1. See if we can get a name on those guys. But as we watch up front,
yeah, there was Jake Sturjoys was in trouble. Car number 6 had lost it, and there's a couple of other people in trouble as well. But for the most part, everyone seems to have fallen through these opening corners quite nicely indeed. Towler, though, completely blasted away from the start. Huttu almost caught unprepared and is now having to play extreme defensive on Ilkka Happila, who's having a look down into club, but backs out of it. And I think Huttu is not at his best at the moment and could well be caught out napping on his back foot.
Yeah, and it sure does. It looks like Florian Goddard, Dave Hoffman, and Mark Payne may have been involved with that too. They've escaped out, but now they're showing in the lead of the race. So as timing and scoring will reset itself around to the beginning, I think those guys have escaped out and jumped into the pits, so they'll be scored ahead at least just for the time being. But as we watch the cars enter Priory and head down towards Brooklyn, Richard Towler leads Gregor Huttu again. Can't reiterate this enough for the first time this season, but Gregor Huttu's got his hands full dealing with Ilkka Happila and Jesse Niemian in 7th place, or in 4th place right behind Ilkka.
Absolutely, and Jesse has only really been racing for a little while, and he's put himself on a great stamp on the series already. As lap 1 completed, Towler 1 second lead exactly practically over Huttu. Happila 3rd, Niemian 4, Purdy 5, Verges 6, Cornet 7, Townsend 8, Bisegale 9, and Ian Lake rounds out your top 10.
Yes, and in just that little bit of time, Richard Towler managed to put a second on Gregor Huttu. So let's see what Gregor Huttu is going to do about this. He's got his own fight right behind him with Ilkka Happila and Jesse Niemian. I have a feeling Huttu's going to be fairly patient, but Towler's spoken pretty in his own defense about some of the aggressive tactics of Gregor Huttu on lap 1. It looks like he's avoided this time, but he knows Gregor is coming, and Gregor will do what it takes to win.
Absolutely. Everyone has gone round the opening lap. Dave Hoffman, Mark Payne and Florian Goddard all rejoined and are some 20 to 30 seconds off the pace, but they have all got going anyway, so at least we haven't had any complete first lap 1 fatalities. And
Florian will be able to add himself to his highlight reels when he does the video recap of it for iRacing TV. So as the cars go down the start-finish straightaway and head for Copse, Richard Thaler in the lead, Gregor Huttu in second. Checking on some of the other Team Orion drivers, Sean Purdy is in 5th, Dion Vergers in 6th. Looks like Darren Marsh has dropped down to 15th.
There's a nice little group considering from 9th position, Mauro Bisele, car 19, going down. You've got Bisele leading Ian Lake, Brad Davies and Derek Wood, and they're all 4 in a train going down, and that looks like Ian Lake is about to have a look at Bisele down into Stowe down the end of Hanger Straight. It's side by side, and they're going to be on the wrong side into Club. He's going to have to go down the outside. Bisele holds the defensive line and keeps the position just for now. Ian Lake there having to duck out of that quite nicely, but the thing is, because everyone's so close around here, he's now got to keep an eye behind him, because Brad Davies is busy taking a look to swoop up on any mistakes that Ian Lake does, as Ian Lake once again all over Bisele, and Bisele is really holding up this train of cars as Calistani and Alfala join on the back.
Yeah, that's Mauro Bisele in that orange and white car, Ian Lake in the black car behind him, and Brad Davies in the black and pink car just behind that third in line. That bright blue car is Brad Davies. Brad Davies messes up something terrible. Not sure what happened there, but that white car, I'm not sure, that white car could be a lapped machine.
Yes, Jesse Niemian just in front of these has made a mistake and dropped back behind Dion Vergers and Sean Purdy. So he's dropped from 4th to 6th. And he went off on turn 1, and someone else has gone off. That is Ian Lake in car 23 has spun off coming out of the gig complex. So they're going off left, right and centre. Obviously on cold tyres.
That was that Maggots Beckett's heading into Chapel. I would be willing to bet, if we looked at that he got beside Matteo Calistani. Oh, check that, Mauro Bisele, and may have tried to go side by side through those fast sweepers that we were talking about earlier. It's just not to be done.
Yeah, he had to go, but he caught one of the curbs in the middle of Beckett's there. He caught the curb on and just spun off all on his own. But that has really, really damaged Ian Lake's race, because he's now stuck behind Tim Holgate. And Tim Holgate is right the way down in, well, he was 25th last time round. So that has completely chucked poor old Ian Lake right down into the thick of it.
So let's jump back up front real quick. Richard Thaler now only 9/10 of a second out in front of the Finn Gregor Huttu. Gregor's going to reel him in slowly. What we've seen over the past races is that the race pace of Huttu has always been faster than Richard Thaler. So while it's not been like seconds per lap, it has been tenths of a second per lap. By the end of 50-lap races, Gregor Huttu has always managed to be about 20 or 30 seconds out by himself in the lead. Let's see if that's going to play out this way. He will be able probably to close in on Richard Thaler, but it's just going to be a matter of getting past him. Richard Thaler is not going to make it easy, and that's for sure. He does want to win this season. I was chatting with him earlier today, and he's really hurt, and he thought he was going to be slower this race, and I can see he was probably playing with my head there.
Well,
sandbagging, as it would.
Sandbagging. I mean, even though this is obviously a simulated race, this is still his home circuit, and I'm sure that still counts for something. Even if you've not got the home crowd effectively cheering you on, you know the ins and outs of your home circuit, and that will always play into your advantage.
So we hear Derek Wood had a little off just a minute ago, back in 11th position. I don't know if he lost any positions from that. Derek Wood, the number 20 car, back in 11th position, or being scored in 11th.
Yeah, unfortunately he's dropped back into 15th position just behind David Serwoy, so he's dropped back into the pack, and there seems to be a real big kind of train of cars, basically starting off with Mauro Bisegli. Brad Davies has got past Bisegli, unseen by us, but Kalistani, Alfala, Seroy, Woods, Marsh, Santel, Height, Cotter, Almeida, Miljokovic, Sandman, Murray and Hofferer are all kind of just in one big long line together, so someone's got to make a break for it somehow.
So on lap 6, let's run down the order real quick here. Richard Towler in front of Gregor Huttu, who has now closed the gap to only 0.6 of a second. Ilkka Happila 1.4 seconds, only 0.8 behind that. So we take a look at Matteo Calistani and Ray Alfala fighting it out as they head into Abbey. There's a big train of cars right there. Mauro Bisegli, Matteo Calistani, Ray Alfala, David Serwoy. All of those guys behind Brad Davies has managed to pull away a little bit, but that is a huge train of cars, and it looks like David Serwoy, 2x2 down in the bridge. You need to be careful doing that. Derek Wood is in there. Derek Wood in that blue and black machine just behind the Ray Alfala, that bright orange and yellow. You can see that one pretty much from orbit.
That all started quite a long way before, where Matteo Calistani had a run at Bisegli down into the end of the Hannah Straight into Stowe. Unfortunately, where it didn't work out, that just pushed everyone straight back, and actually the big loser from that was David Serwoy, because Derek Wood managed to get round the outside of him into Abbey.
But the real fight is back up front. Richard Towler. Oh, look at this. We need to jump up front, Mr. Director. Richard Towler now has a mirror full of Gregor Huttu. It was 0.7 when they hit the start-finish line. I'd be willing to bet it's less than a tenth or two now. Richard Towler may have messed up a braking point or an entry into a turn. That's unlikely considering how good he is. But Gregor Huttu is now right on the gearbox of Richard Towler. But take a look at that. Ilkka Happila from Team Orion staying right with, not letting these guys get off into the distance. Watch these guys get tangled up. Ilkka Happila is going to be a very happy guy if these guys end up taking each other out.
Certainly. The other person that's also staying with them is Sean Purdy. These four drivers are all in the low 131s. Towler was a 131.191 last time by, and as they cross the line this time, we'll see what the times are. Richard Towler 131.6, Huttu a 131.2, Hauptler a 131.2, and Purdy a 131.4, and these lot are the only ones in the 31s. Everyone else is 32s behind, so this is a 4-horse race.
Yeah, to finish that thought, Ilkka Happila had a fantastic race in Road America 2 weeks ago, finishing second. Sean Purdy also, he had bad luck in Road America, but he's doing really well this time, 4th place. So if Richard Towler and Gregor Huttu take each other out, it's going to be a Team Orion 1-2-3. Let's jump back and take a look at position number 7. There's Blake Townend, Ben Cornett, the second Team Redline driver in the field today. So Blake Townend is that red, white, and blue car. Just in front of him is Jesse Nieminen. Let's take a look at Jesse trying to close in. That's Dion Vergers right in front of him. That PSR TV Simboot car. As they come off of the final turn down Woodcut, down the start-finish straightaway. Let's take a look at the gap between Vergers and Nieminen. Looks like a 0.5 right now as they go into Copse. It's a fast right-hander. It's a lot of punishing turns on this track. This track is pretty hard on tires, but it's flat. I believe we are at a two-stop race this time. Looks like the pit window is going to be open about lap 20 or so.
Just
going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if these guys either do full stints and then shorten that final stint, or if they're going to actually divide the race into 3 equal parts.
Jesse Niemian must be quite annoyed at the fact that he done that spin early on, because he has the pace to catch up with this leading quartet that have been pulling away, and Dion Burgess is actually getting faster and faster lap after lap, being pushed by Niemian, and they're kind of dragging Blake Townsend and Ben Cornett along with them, and they've all pulled out, and a massive 6-second advantage over Brad Davies to 9. Matteo Calistani, who has moved into 10 past Derek Wood. So Mauro Bisegli has really lost out while we've been watching a battle for the lead. He's slipped down to 15th now after running 8th at the end of the opening lap. So Mauro Bisegli has really been the topsy-turvy one so far this race.
So let's jump up to take a look at Ilkka Happila in 3rd place, running a couple of seconds, 1.2 seconds behind. One note here, Ilkka Happila and Ben Cornett are dead tied for their points championship right now, 897 each. Sean Purdy, 872, so he's just 25 points behind. Ilkka Happila now wanting to win the race for sure if Gregor and Towler take each other out, but definitely wants to finish in front of Ben Cornett. Ben Cornett currently running in 8th position. Ilkka Happila running in 3rd. That's a difference of 20 points right there. Is Ilkka Happila, if the race were to end right now, Ilkka Happila would gain 20 points on Ben Cornett. I don't expect Ben Cornett to really stay there. Let's jump back and take a look at Ben Cornett. Right now behind Blake Townend, Ben Cornett in 8th place. Ben Cornett now chasing Blake Townend. Back 1.3 seconds from him as they cross the start-finish light right now, and now is only 0.6 behind him. He has closed that gap immensely.
He certainly has. I think he knows that the more cars that are obviously between himself and Ilkka, the more chance he is going to have to claw things back in later in races, and there's not too many races after this one left. I think there's only 5 remaining. Of course, there's 2 drops that people are allowed to take in this series, but you don't want to have to rely on them. If you've got a nice comfortable advantage already, then you can be quite happily touring round, and sometimes when you've got less kind of pressure on you, you can perform better because you drive more fluidly.
So let's jump back up front once again. Richard Towler has got Gregor Huttu right on him again. It is closed. That gap was about 0.8 2 laps ago, and now it's down to 0.4 again. Gregor Huttu playing the accordion effect, fills up Richard Towler's mirror, then either drops back or Richard Towler pulls ahead.
Ilkka Happila still holding on very nicely as well, just 1.5 seconds further back, keeping a nice watching brief, praying that these two will come to blows one way or another. There's no love lost particularly between Richard Towler and Gregor Huttu. They do have a history, as I'm sure a lot of our regular viewers will be more than aware of, as they come round for lap 12.
They were former teammates at Redline too. Richard Towler left Team Redline not too terribly long ago.
Well,
and we hear there's trouble on the track. Let's see if we can find out where it is. Hang on just a minute. And it looks like Brian Heitkotter and Daniel Almeida have come together. Let's see. Yeah, Almeida is beginning to drop down the order, as is Heitkotter. Yep. It looks like George Sandman may have been in that too. take a look at that, see if we can take a look at that on replay. We hear maybe Ian Lake from Team Podium Assault maybe in on that as well.
That will bring our retirements up to 3 because Brian Heitkotter, Daniel Almeida have both retired, and Milis Miokovic is also out as of 2 laps ago, so that leaves us with just 31 runners and riders remaining.
Well, it looks to me like they may have just dropped off the server. They just disappeared for me when I backed up to take a look at it. So let's see if we can actually hear from our reporter Chuck Johnson out there, see if he can figure out what happened. All right, so let's jump back up front as we try and figure out what happened to those guys. Richard Towler still in the lead. Gregor Huttu second. Ilkka Happila hanging on there. I'm really impressed with Ilkka Happila's pace these past 3 races. Road America, Mosport. He may not have had the best showing at Infineon. I think he crashed out of that race, but the Team Orion guys have really taken to this new update, this new transmission model, and this new aero damage model that we've had recently updated. These guys have seen a real resurgence.
So what exactly has changed that has made this so play into Team Orion's hands?
Well, you know, I would imagine it's just a matter of setup. I mean, their setup may have been something that benefited from the new model. Maybe they just took to the transmission model a little bit differently, because what they've done now is they've more accurately modeled the transmissions for their shift points, for their shift, for the transmission types. So it's really interesting. You can't just slam down the gears like you used to be able to slow the car down. Some cars do have that ability, but these, you kind of have to match your shift, match your downshifts a little bit. There are still options to sort of help you through that if you want to have the add the aids, the blip aid and the auto clutch aid. Some of these guys are doing that, some are not. What specifically has played into the hands of Team Orion, I don't know. I mean, there's the aero model is a little more accurate. There's a bigger draft hole in the air now.
The other thing that's actually been very, very impressive from my perspective today is this is the first time that I've really seen Richard Towler completely soak up everything so far that Gregor Huttu has thrown at him. Huttu hasn't exactly been sticking his nose in left, right and centre, obviously, but he is there as a constant presence. And Ilkka Happila as well is just stalking the pair of them. Richard Towler does not appear to be making any mistakes, not letting it get the better of him at all. He's still driving very fluidly and making sure that he hits as many apex as he can. It's looking very good.
But he's not pulling away either. So we're taking a look at P7 here. Actually, the battle for 5th, I believe. That's Dion Vergers out front. Jesse Nieminen in 6th, Blake Townend in 7th, and Ben Cornett bringing up the rear of that 4-pack. Like we mentioned before, Ben Cornett's got everything to lose. He needs to pull up there and challenge Ilkka Happila for 3rd place. We'll see how the pit stops play out. We're definitely coming close to the window.
Last time round, those 4 were separated by just a 10th, and interestingly, actually, Dion Burgers was actually the fastest of the 4, and Cornett was the slowest of the 4. They've all just been matching each other for time. I think they're just trying to keep as close together as possible, maybe not necessarily looking for a way through, but then looking for that extra surge of power when they come into the pit stop window, which will be approaching very shortly, because we're on lap 15 of 50, and Matt Centel is our first man into the pits, so the pit window is most definitely open.
Something else, so before the pit stops, let's run through the order real quick. The top 10 Richard Towler, Gregor Huttu, Ilkka Happila, Sean Purdy, Dion Vergers, Jesse Nieminen, Blake Townend, Ben Cornett, Brad Davies, and Matteo Calistani. That's your top 10, 28 seconds between 1st and 10th. So let's see how these guys are going to come out after the pit stops. which we are now beginning to see.
You've got on your screen currently at the moment Raul Alfala. He's currently running 13th position in the lovely orange and yellow car, and he's got a nice little train of Ian Lake, David Seroy behind him. They're slowly dropping Mauro Bisegle, who's just been passed by Richard Crozier for 16th and 17th position. So these lot are all going to be starting to strategically place where they're going to go into the pits. They pit now, they could very well, just like Jesse Niemian has done in car number 8, he's now slipped down to 8th. First of our top guys in. You can pit now, but then you've got good tyre traction and good, obviously, more pace on your new tyres. However, you may come out into traffic, and therefore that will ruin all the hard work that you've just let yourself come out for. Or you could go longer and try and hope that you've then cleared a better space for you, and therefore have a much shorter second stint of tyres, being able to thrash them a little bit more.
Jesse Nieminen is coming out of the pits right into this battle with Ray Alfala, Ian Lake, and David Serwa. It looks like, he's side by side with Ian Lake.
Oh.
That's the number 8 car. That's Jesse right there. That dark blue and black number 8 car, blue and white. Sorry. So he's right in the middle of this mess.
That's not where Jesse needs to be. Jesse needed to come out in clear air, because that is going to ruin him, and that is music to Ben Cornett and Blake Townsend's ears, because those two are going to absolutely leapfrog them if he cannot pass these guys immediately, because they're in clear air and they've got exactly the same pace, and these guys simply don't.
Some of these guys have got a lot more to lose than Jesse. Jesse hadn't been in a whole lot of these races. He's a pro driver who's coming up through the ranks. That's filled a spot. What happens is, if the World Championship drivers don't fill the spots, the pro drivers that are qualified can get in. Jesse was one of those. And so it looks like these guys are beginning to, some of these guys around him, the Ray Alfala, Ian Lake, David Serwa, these guys are regular World Championship contenders and have points at stake. Jesse doesn't have that handicap, as we see Ray Alfala and Ian Lake dive into the pits. That'll clear the air for Jesse.
Just behind Richard Crozier and Mauro Bisegle are also in, as is John Prather, who we've not mentioned yet, who is also making his way up the order. So this appears to be the time, and the pit stops are coming in, and this is bang on for a 2-stop strategy.
Yeah, John Prather had a fantastic race in Road America, finished 10th 2 weeks ago. That was really good of him. So I think what we need to do is jump up to the leaders, because these guys are going to be pitting probably together. If you play racing like you should play racing, what would happen is that you want to follow exactly what the leader does. Now, Gregor Huttu isn't your average sim racer, but no, they pass the pits this time by. They stay out. Richard Towler still in the lead. Gregor Huttu now only 0.3 behind Richard Towler. And I wonder if these guys are playing their strategy a little bit, if one of them may short fill to shorten their pit stop or not.
Oh, there's been a bit of trouble. Ilka Hapler and Sean Purdy have both popped into the pits, but there was a big problem behind. Dion Vergers, Townsend and Cornett all come into the pit. Cornett was caught out and smacked the back of Townsend into the pit lane, and that would have not helped his car out at all.
And so, yeah, one of the things when we were talking about the new aero models for these cars, now the damage that didn't used to make any aerodynamic difference in the car does. And so there could be a potential for, if you've got bent wings now, they're going to create a different downforce factor on your car. So it's going to be interesting to see if that bent up his front wing and if that has any adjustments on his handling, any detriments on his handling.
It was a definite smack. There has to be at least some kind of problem, and that is going to absolutely you have to relearn the car as you drive with that kind of damage, and that's going to really affect, especially at this high level where there's only a couple of tenths between everyone. That is going to really affect him if he wants to try and kind of damage limitate what's going on between himself and Ilki.
Okay, Richard Towler's in, but Huttu is not. Towler is in, but Huttu is not, so Huttu obviously thinks he's fast enough to get that crucial 10th or 2 that it's going to take to try and pass Towler in the pits.
Give Gregor a ribbit. I think he's trying the old leapfrog.
So let's watch Huttu's lap. I'm going to jump on board with Gregor Huttu, and let's take a look at him, see if he really turns up the heat. And yes, 165, 168 miles an hour down Hanger straightaway. Yes, he's definitely got a fast lap on his way.
Richard Towler is just rejoining the pits, but actually Ilkka Happler is right alongside and is going to have quite good momentum as they come out of the Copse and the Maggots and Beckett's complex. But it looks as though Towler is going to hold that position, but there's no kind of gain or loss at all. So it's all down to what Gregor Huttu can do in this lap, and if he can run another one, then that could very well see him pull clear.
There's lap traffic in front of him. I don't know who it is. Yellow and black car.
Jan Ziliakis.
That may play into his...
out of the way.
Yeah, he gets out of the way, smartly gets out of the way. Let's see if Huttu's going to dive in. No, he's not. He's going to do it again. So he's definitely on a heavier fuel load than Richard Towler.
Let's see what lap time he's putting in, a 1:31.2, and that is, I believe, if not the fastest, but definitely the fastest that these lot have been doing in the sprints. This is working very nicely into Gregor Huttu's hands at all. If he can pull out another lap like that, he could very well pull out of the pits alongside Towler. See, Towler's coming across the line now. Ilkka Happler is right behind. This is Happler's first lap out of the pits. They're kind of exactly the same proportion as where they were when they came out of the pits last lap around, and that's a 1:31.5 for Ilkka Happler. So that's the 3 tenths that effectively Huttu was behind Towler that he's already gained.
So yeah, let's see what the bogey time. We don't know what the bogey time is going to be from the pit in to pit out. Right now, Gregor Huttu's got a 32.5 second and opening gap on the former leader and pole sitter Richard Towler. Ilkka Happler right on the tail of Richard Towler as well, hoping to capitalize just like Gregor Huttu's going to do. So let's watch Gregor Huttu as he comes up on lap traffic again as he's heading into Brooklands. And we hear Ray Alfala has gone off. Ray Alfala off back in 19th position. Yep, Ray Alfala. So Huttu's in the pits. So let's keep one eye on Gregor Huttu. Let's keep one eye on Richard Towler. Richard Towler now just coming through bridge.
As they crossed the line last time by, the gap between the pair was 32.494 seconds, which is almost identical to what you'd need to make a pit stop. So this is going to be absolutely nothing between them. But Huttu needed to pit that time by because he'd hit all that traffic, and any kind of progress he would have made would have been instantly lost.
And he's got the advantage of being way down there at the end of the pit road. And Richard Towler is nowhere to be seen. He just now crosses the start-finish line. Gregor Huttu has taken the lead in the pit stop exchange. Congratulations to him. Richard Towler now a pretty good distance behind Huttu. Huttu into Maggots and Beckett's. Richard Towler now a good second or more with a car between them.
And they've got Dave Hoffman as a good backup. And that was lap 21 completed. So, yep, they're going to have to definitely stop again. 2 stopping all the way for everyone here today as Huttu pops a lap on George Sandman. And, well, it was nice while it lasted. I'm not being cynical. So I believe we've got some visual problems at the moment, but we'll be back with you shortly. And everyone driving off the track, actually, to get out of the way.
They are. They would rather watch from the stands, it looks like.
That was Dave Hoffman giving us a little comical moment. Probably good job we weren't airing that on PSR TV, because that was like my standard of driving, which generally you don't find in any league.
Well, you know, when you have the likes of Gregor Huttu and Richard Towler, you know Richard Towler and Gregor are fighting it out tooth and nail, and you see on the little red numbers coming up behind you, you're getting out of the way as fast as you possibly can. I know I do. And you know, if the guy in front of me decides he's going to go off, you can bet your bottom dollar that his trailer hitch is going to be attached to my to the front of my car, and it's going to drag me right into the grass as well. So while we wait for the server to come back up, Gregor Huttu in the lead with a 2-second lead on Richard Towler. Ilkka Happila in third place, 3 seconds back from the leader, Gregor Huttu. Sean Purdy, 5 seconds back in fourth. Dion Vergers in fifth, 14.5 seconds back from Gregor Huttu.
Not looking bad at all. Blake Townsend is sixth and has got Jesse Nieminen all over the back of him in seventh. So Nieminen, as I said, he pitted too early and came out into all that traffic. We had the Real Falla and et al. Battle going on, and that's really ruined it for Jesse Niemi, and he's really got to get back past Blake Townsend. Ben Cornett is 8, Brad Davies is 9, Florian Goddard has moved up into 10th place from out of nowhere particularly, and that's your top 10 so far.
So as now we join our PSR TV radio broadcast. Let's see if we can find some big movers. Florian Goddard, I don't know if he's pitted yet. Florian Goddard now up to 10th place. Florian Goddard started way back in the field.
No, Florian Goddard has not pitted yet because he has yet to do a lap under a 1:33. So Florian Goddard is our kind of odd one out, so when he does pit from 10th place, although it's given him a good little bit of running now, he will rejoin probably back down in the 20th downwards, so that will give 10th back to Derek Wood. Just following on, just a quick rundown of the order while we wait for our visuals to come back. Derek Wood is 11, Kalastani is 12, Darren Marsh 13, Ryan Murray up to 14, Ian Lake is 15, David Serwai is 16, Richard Crozier is 17, just holding off Matt Santel 18 and Jake Sturjoy, Jake the Stake 19. Tim Holgate rounds out your top 20. Gerd Hoffer is 21, with John Prather and Real Falla running just behind. Alice Simeonek is 24, with Paul Richard and Mauro Basile, the last of our unlapped runners. And then one lap down is Andrea Boldi, George Sandman, Mark Payne, Jan Ziliakis, and Dave Hoffman is our final runner and rider. Still 31 remaining, with just 3 retirements of Daniel Almeida, Brian Heitkotter, and Milos Miokovic.
So it's interesting, as we were talking about that, Florian Goddard actually came into the pits. This is lap 23. I wonder if Florian's going to be able to stretch that, or if he's going to have to pit on the final lap.
Well, I suppose he's going to end up getting lapped, isn't he, by the leaders, so that's going to save him one.
That will. It's a very good point. So let's wait for timing and scoring. He pitted as runner in 11th place. So let's see how well that does him, that single stop strategy. If he already plans to be at least 1 or 2 laps down, that could play into his hands pretty well.
Absolutely. He's popped out just behind Tim Holgate, and Tim Holgate's in 20th at the moment. So Florian Goddard's back out in 21, but with potential to go an awful lot higher if that works out well.
All right, so it sounds like the PSR TV crew is bringing us back, so we got about 30 seconds. We'll get your visuals back for you. Gregor Huttu still in the lead over Richard Towler. Passed him in the pit stop exchange if you are just joining us. Looks like Gregor Huttu stayed out for 2 extra laps and made up that extra precious 4 or 5 tenths that it took to get around Richard Towler. Richard Towler had led the entire race up to that point from pole. Ilkka Happila still right behind Richard Towler. Just a measly little 1 second between the two. As we welcome back our visual system. Nicely done, Mr. Ian Bushing. Thank you very much. Hardest working man in show business.
He doesn't even get on the screen. However, what is slightly depressing now is that Gregor Huttu is now the first man to go sub 131 with a 130.945 last time by, and now, oh god, a 135.77. So suddenly Gregor Huttu is now saying exactly what he thinks about how Richard Towler yoinked his pole away from him at the last possible moment and pretty much gave Huttu the first laps of pretty much the season that he's not led, and absolutely the first stint he's not led. So now he's trying to stamp down his authority the only way he knows how, which is push, push, and goddamn push.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that you kind of wish for the old Grand Prix Legends days when you had the little button where you could raise your arm up and raise your fist at the guy as you were passing him. It was always a fun button to play with in Grand Prix Legends. So as we round, this is the halfway point, lap number 25. Gregor Huttu has taken the lead from Richard Thaler. Ilkka Happila in third, Sean Purdy in fourth, Dion Vergers in fifth. Let's jump back and take a look at the battle for fifth place. Sorry about that. Battle for sixth place. Blake Townend and Jesse Nieminen. That's Blake in that red, white, and blue car. Number 24, no sponsor. That's a pity. Jesse in that blue and white car behind him, also carrying no sponsor. Some of these cars, like Ben Cornette, carrying. Guys are a couple of lapped cars around these guys. They're going to really push these guys together. And Blake Townend actually saying something on the radio. I couldn't make it out. Probably a thank you for the lap car that he went around. I believe that was hard.
It was Andrea Boldi who actually, in the process of letting them through, has lost out on a position to Mark Payne. So extra nice driving there from Andrea Boldi.
Oh my goodness, and watch Jesse just absolutely close up under braking into maggots. Oh man, he had to slam on the brakes to keep from going under Blake's gearbox and breaking his front wing. And he looks left, looks right as they go down Hanger straightaway into Stowe. We have a big battle back here. Let's jump back and take a look at position 19. That's Florian Goddard in 20th position, our one-stopping strategy guy, getting around Tim Holgate as they head into the first turn and now down into maggots. But Holgate is not going to let that position go lightly. That's Florian Goddard there in that green and white car. Tim Holgate in that black machine with the blue wings right behind him. The number 34. Right behind him, I believe, that's Gerd Hoffra.
And Hoffra was actually one of the very first people to pop into the pits, if I remember rightly. So Goddard there, now clear of Holgate and Hoffra. Who's next on Goddard's hit list? That's Matt Centel. A good few minutes up, seconds up the road, and is busy in their own little battle with Seroy, Crozier and Sturjoys. So Florian Goddard looking very nifty indeed if he's going to make this one stop strategy work, and could well find himself in about 11 or 12 by the end of this race.
I believe you're right. I think that's, well, I mean, that's assuming that he goes down a lap. At the pace that he's running right now in 20th position, it's a wonder. And he's, we've only got looks like 4 lapped cars now. So, Gregor Huttu and the company at the front's going to have to get by him not once but twice to put him down the 2 laps he needs to go the entire distance on one stop. But the last time he stayed out for a full stint of fuel, he managed to go 23 laps. So we'll watch Florian throughout the race and see what his one-stop strategy, if it's going to pay off for him. But back up front, it's still Gregor Huttu in the lead, now opening that gap as everything is back to business as usual. Richard Thaler beginning to drop off the pace just a little bit, now 4.3 seconds back. But Ilkka Happila still hanging in there with Richard Thaler. Only 1.5 seconds behind him. Sean Purdy now 4 seconds behind Ilkka. Dion Vergers, his teammate, looks like 11 seconds behind, 13 seconds behind. Check that.
There's a great battle going on for play 28 and 29. Car 23, Jan Ziliakis, there has just been passed down the home straight by Dave Hoffman, actually. Dave Hoffman, the man who we saw going off the track to avoid all the front runners coming through, is now having to make his way back up the order, and that was a good move down the home straight on Jan Ziliakis for what will now be 27th position for him.
So we were talking earlier about some of the additions. One of the other additions that they've done at the last build was add the spectate mode. And we actually see at least more than a handful of people in spectator mode watching this race live with us. They're unable to hear our wonderful commentary, but they are able to jump around all the cameras they like and take a look at their favorite driver for the entire time. There's a limited space for spectator mode, but it is a pretty interesting way to watch a race. I personally prefer somebody else do the camera work, but it is a pretty good thing. So if you like what you see, one quick pitch here. Let's take a couple of minutes to talk about what we are looking here. This is internet sim racing. This is all of these drivers are real people and are sitting in their own homes or wherever their computer happens to be with their own off-the-shelf store-bought wheel. Go to iRacing.com and sign up. What it is it's a subscription-based service. You buy the cars you want for the introductory rate of like $5, I believe, for your first 30 days. You can get a handful of cars and a pretty good handful of tracks to get an idea of what you want to do. If you want to do road racing, you want to do oval racing, then at that point you buy the cars and tracks you want. You build up, you run through the series, you have a safety rating that follows you, you have an I rating that follows you. Safety rating is obviously how based on how few things and people you hit on the track. Your I rating is based on your expected position finishing, as opposed to how well you've done in qualifying and all of that, and you build up I rating points. They use those numbers to put you in races with talented people, and it's a really fantastic and fun service. It's a very vigorous forums, community forums that we talk about all kinds of things, not always just racing, but they are divided down into off topics and individual car forums. I spent 5 seasons running the Star Mazdas, and that were fantastic. There was a good Star Mazda forum. It's the most popular car out there really these days. So go check it out at iRacing.com and see if it is for you if you're not already signed up. It's a really, really fun thing to do when you're not watching TV.
Or consider it as interactive TV, one way or the other. I personally, at the moment, I'm starting to get back into iRacing because I got so involved with actually chatting away with it all, I kept forgetting to drive. So I actually find myself now getting back involved with the oval side of things. So if you find that actually doing some corners might be a little bit of a trouble for you, go around in circles like me.
That's interesting. I'm actually a road racer, so I've been. That's why I've been following these Drivers' World Championship. And so what this is the Drivers' World Championship. These guys have worked their way up all up into the Pro Series, and then they finished in the top. I don't forget. I believe it was 35 or 40 positions that they got World Championship status, and now they're fighting amongst themselves in the World Championship for upwards of $10,000 in cash and prizes for first, and I believe it's 5 or 3 for second, and 1 or 2 for third. So it's a lot of big money at stake here. One other thing that we haven't mentioned, that Richard Towler, running second in the Road Championship, is also leading the Oval Championship. So he's unemployed, but stands to make a pretty healthy check this year just in finishing first in the ovals, if he can pull it off, which he's having. Actually, they're closing down on him on first place over in the oval races, which are heard here on PSR TV on Tuesday evenings. But he's also running a good solid second place in this event. So Richard Towler, the all-around driver of the century, I believe, for iRacing.
Maybe he should have his practice times capped if he's unemployed and spends all day on the computer racing around instead. There's a good battle going on, actually, down in car number it was car 31 and car 34, Tim Holgate and Gerd Hoffra. Hoffra was right onto the back of Holgate's rear wing. He's dropped back slightly now because he tried to almost have a go down into the complex of Maggots and Beckett's, which you generally don't want to do, and as a result he's dropped back, but he's getting ready to regroup back and have another go, I fear. And look at I don't know if you're seeing him on the screen now, but he's closed right in down in the final third sector, and I think Gerd will be readying himself for an attack down at the end of Hangar Straight at the end of the next lap by.
So as we circle around on lap number 30, keep in mind that it looks like the second pit window could potentially open here for some of the early runners. I believe Darren Marsh, or there are a couple of other early adapters who went in about on lap 15 earlier, so I believe those guys are probably going to divide this race into equal thirds. Some of the drivers like Florian are going for a one-stop, and I believe that Gregor Huttu may have short-filled a little bit, so I'm not sure the second stint he'll be low on fuel and have to come in sooner than second place Richard Towler.
Absolutely. We've lost Alice Simunek from the race a couple of laps ago, so that brings us down to 30 runners and riders. Didn't see what happened to him, but he is out.
What exactly is the difference between a runner and a rider? I'm curious about that. You've said it more than once.
Runners and riders. Oh, it's just, I don't know.
Is it a British thing?
It's a Simon thing. I talk rubbish. That's why I get onto this kind of thing.
So as we circle around on lap number 31, Gregor Huttu has taken the lead from Richard Towler back on the pit stop exchange. Ilka Happela in third, Sean Purdy in fourth. Nothing has changed up front. Dion Vergers in fifth, Blake Townend in sixth, Jesse Nieminen in seventh place, Ben Cornett still in eighth place. So if you remember, Ben Cornett and Ilka Happela are still tied, or currently tied. So if they finish now, it's still going to be Ilka Happela going to get a 20-point jump on Ben Cornett for third place in the overall points championship. So as we take a look at the points championship compared to the runners now, Gregor Huttu obviously at the top, Richard Towler in second, Ilka Happela in third in the points, but tied with Ben Cornett. Sean Purdy is right there, only 20 points behind. Darren Marsh, Dion Vergers, Luke McLean, who we've not seen in a couple of races, back there in 8th position. Brian Heitkotter in 9th, Bastian Barch in 10th. That's the top 10 of the points standings, the championship points standings. So keep an eye out for guys like Brian Heitkotter, who actually went out very early. This is going to be punishing on his championship points.
Absolutely. Actually, I'm really quite surprised at how high up the order Brian Heitkotter is. I know he's done some great racing, especially earlier on in the season, where he really figured quite highly in some of the events. But to be 9th, actually, is a lot higher than where I'd mentally put him. Same with John Prather, actually, in 16th with 555 points. It's a bit higher than what I imagined him to be. So consistency is definitely a key in some of these events.
Well, it definitely is, and there's a part of it that's, you know, I mean, like we were talking about pre-race, that there's a part of it that is just showing up for races. You know, a lot of these guys have commitments somewhere else. They may, you know, they may own a boat. You know, they may want to be on their boat rather than sim racing. Of course, when you're fighting for $10,000, you know, it's hard to not want to be here to try and collect as much as you can. But, you know, like John Prather has competed in 12 of the 14 events that we've had, or 13 of the 14 events that we've had, so he's only got one drop. You were talking about Brian Heitkotter. Brian Heitkotter's had 5 top 10s. So Heitkotter is there just by, you know, consistency of top 10s. And again, he's been here for, you know, 12 of our 14 races.
Our first pit stops of Take 2 variety are in. George Sandman and Gerd Hofferer have been into the pits, and they're the first ones to start our second round off on lap 33 as well, so and 34, so it's kind of early actually for me.
And to continue that thought one more time, just one more real quick thought on what we were talking about as far as the championship points. Bastian Barch, who's a Team Redline partner with Gregor Huttu and Ben Cornett and Luke McLean, Bastian Barch has only competed in 8 of our events. So Bastian Barch, having missed so many events early on in the season, he and Richard Towler were neck and neck for second place in the points. So his absence, you know, and guys like Dom Duhan, who had a baby, of course. So that's a little, you know, that's a different one. I'm curious as to what happened. I've actually not talked to Bastian in a while. I'd be curious to know why he pretty much stopped competing. But he was in the race this morning, the Intel GP Series, and finished 3rd, I believe. So we are now waiting for not only our leader, but Richard Towler, who is now 6.8 seconds behind Gregor Huttu. I don't think that can really be made up unless Gregor Huttu does some uncanny mistake. He's not really shown the ability to make much in the way of mistakes on his own this season. I believe him and Darren Marsh got together in Brands Hatch a few races ago, but and that required him to fight his way back just a little bit, but he still won in dominant fashion. Gregor Huttu now beginning to do what Gregor does, which is put the distance on Richard Towler for the lead. Just that little bit, tenth by tenth by tenth per lap. You add those up and you get some real time after 50 laps, or 30 laps of what he'll be leading.
Jesse Niemian and Ben Cornett, car number 7 and 8, are in the pits, and that's quite useful to see what's going on. Jesse Niemian is just coming back out again, car number 8 from his pit stop, and that has actually extended his advantage over Ben Cornett, because Cornett had a much slower stop. And Florian Goddard also is back in the pits as well, so that's his one stop out the window, because he's back in very, very early on again, as Gregor Huttu is in.
That's curious about Florian. I thought he would have gone a whole lot further. He picked on lap 23, so only went 13 laps on his second stint. That's going to really not do his race much good, so Gregor Huttu is in the pits. Let's watch him as he comes down. Richard Towler has actually passed the pits. So as Gregor gets his service and is now down and away, he's going to pull out, and let's see, Richard Towler is off and now only into Stowe, it looks like. So Gregor Huttu out of the pits, now headed down into Stowe, so it looks like Richard Towler. Let's wait for timing and scoring to catch up. This is curious. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like they're lined up correctly. So I wonder if there was a problem with any of these guys. I think Ilkka Happila has gone into the pits from third place and now dropped down the order just a little bit. Dion Vergers is now taken over, being scored as third. Going to watch Richard Towler as he comes down the start-finish straightaway. Does not take the pits this time by. So let's see what our timing and scoring is going to show us. Okay, so Richard Towler is, in fact, in the lead. Gregor Huttu is now coming around Luffield. Yes, so, okay.
So, Huttu's at 23.9 seconds back. He's been slightly held up by Dion Vergers, who was busy getting back into the pits again. Blake Townsend yet to pit in third, but that is probably how Gregor Huttu was able to get such a decent advantage in that pit stop, because he's obviously short-fueled himself in for a much shorter middle stint, thus saving time in the pits with the fuel, and therefore leapfrogging and gaining that extra second or so that he gained over Towler.
We need to watch Richard Towler's time. His last time by, looks like he's been doing 131.3s and 131.1 and a 131.3. Let's see if he's actually turned the wick up a little bit to try and gain a little ground on Huttu this time by, try and pull the exact same thing that Gregor did on him this trip through the pits. So I'm actually watching Richard Towler. I apologize if you guys are not actually watching the same thing. And Towler hits the pits, so we won't know what his total lap time will be.
So here is Towler in.
So now all eyes should go to Gregor Huttu and see where he is. He was being blocked a little bit by, that's not Ian Lake, looks like Matt Sintel maybe, or John Prather.
It was Paul Richards.
Okay, so Gregor Huttu's easily going to take the lead back from Richard Towler. Richard Towler sitting in his pit stall, and there goes Yeah, there goes Gregor Huttu, and Richard Towler comes out now. So now odds should go back to Sean Purdy.
But I have to say, actually, that Richard Towler, I think, over that kind of little pit stop period, has probably had a net gain in terms of time, because there was about 7 seconds advantage between them, and now that I can see them pretty much in the same picture in some occasions, so I think Towler may well have gained a second or so, but ultimately it's going to end up with the same result. But at least it's been a fighting defeat so far for Richard Towler, and this has been probably by far the most competition, fierce and long-lasting competition that Gregor Huttu's had so far this season, which bodes well for the remaining 5 races we've got to come.
Exactly, and those 5 races include tracks like the Indianapolis Road Course. I believe Mid-Ohio is on the schedule, the Homestead Road Course, Lime Rock. Boy, these cars around Lime Rock is going to be absolute crazy. I know they've changed the schedule a little bit. My schedule might be outdated, but I believe that's the current schedule as it stands. They substituted what was the
Lime Rock.
Lime Rock with 36 of these cars going around it. I've raced that track a bunch of times in a Star Mazda car. I can't imagine doing it in these cars. You're going to have a bullfight in a phone booth.
That sounds like me trying to get in and out of a shower. But good swap for position going on over for P11 and 12. Car number 14, David Seroy, has just been overtaken by Derek Wood. And that's going to be for a net 11th place once they've come around to finish off their laps, possibly even a little bit higher, because I'm not sure about Matteo Calistani and whether he needs to pit again. He's currently running in 8th.
So I'm going to go back and take a look at the schedule here just so I don't give you guys false information. Hang on just a second.
What do you mean there's not a race on the moon?
No kidding. Okay, so the last 4 races after this race in Silverstone are going to be Indianapolis, the road course in Indianapolis, Watkins Glen, Phillip Island, and Mid-Ohio. And I believe that is absolutely, could not ask for 4 better tracks to run these guys. And that's going to be the Watkins Glen Classic boot configuration, which is missing that bus stop chicane, I believe. Yes, it is.
I get very confused with Phillip Island. That's one track that personally, as a driver, I have never been able to drive properly in my entire life.
And that's a fairly new track from the standpoint of iRacing. It's a fantastic track. It was the track that they introduced the Ford V8 supercars with at the same time of the build 12 wins, I want to say 15 weeks ago or something along those lines. But it's going to be an interesting track. It's a very narrow, sweepy kind of course. It's going to be interesting to see, again, these cars really fight it out on something that track that really wasn't meant for this kind of car. But it's going to be cool.
It will be very interesting indeed. Gregor Huttu is coming up to a nice little scrap-baroo that's going on for P16 and 17. Car 21, Richard Crozier, has got Jake Sturjoy. I've not called him Steak yet so far.
It's Sturgis.
Sturjoy, sorry. Oh, I'll call him just Steak. That's easier for me.
Jake the Steak.
Jake the Steak. He's definitely living up to his name and getting his beef about him, because Richard Crozier did pass him earlier on, but Jake has been so busy trying to get back past again ever since, and they're coming round to be lapped quite quickly by Gregor, so Gregor's going to have to watch it. The gap between Gregor and Richard Towler is 5 seconds exactly, so over that pit stop period Richard did indeed close down a little bit, and it's only going to take us one little small mistake. I know all these guys are at top level, but we've seen it happen. We saw it at Brands Hatch, where just someone else's error can cost you dearly, and we saw it also earlier on today in our Intel race that we was broadcasting earlier. Someone else has trouble and you just fall in behind them and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's not your fault, but it doesn't matter. You have to live with the consequences.
So with 10 laps to go, we are circulating on lap 40. Let's run down the order real quick here. Nothing has really changed up front after before the pit stops. Gregor Huttu is in the lead by 5 seconds over Richard Tauler. Ilkka Happila has actually lost quite a bit of time, lost 8 seconds somewhere along the way. He was right on Richard Tauler's gearbox just before the pit stops. So I wonder if he had problems getting in and out of the pits or got tangled up with lap traffic that Richard Tauler was able to get by fairly effectively. So Ilkka's in third, Sean Purdy is in fourth, Dion Vergers is in fifth place.
Jesse Niemian is running 6th, 33 seconds off the pace. Blake Townend is 7, Brad Davis 8, Ben Cornett 9, and Derek Wood is now popped into 10 now that Kalistani has pitted and rejoined in 13th.
Darren Marsh in 11th, David Surwa in 12th, Matteo Calistani in 13th, Ryan Murray from Team Podium Assault in 14th, his teammate right behind him, Ian Lake, in 15th, Richard Crozier in 16th, and I went one too far, didn't I?
That's all right. We can pattern it. Jake Sturjoy is 17th and the last unlapped runner, although he's just about been lapped actually by Gregor Huttu. Then we've got one lap down, Mattson Tell 18, Florian Goddard 19, not quite doing the one stopper we thought he would be doing, and Gerd Hofferer is 20th, and I think we've just lost Tim Holgate.
I believe we did. And he dropped out from 23rd. Let's take a look at, yeah, okay. So Gregor Huttu is now getting around a whole lot of lap traffic. That looks like the Richard Crozier, Jake the Stake run. It's actually now broken free of those guys. So as we continue to watch Gregor Huttu circulate, go under bridge and through, which bridge is now gone, at least in the current configuration of the new track.
Just looking back actually at why Tim Holgate retired, Tim Holgate had a mini connection blip, went off the server, either that or he's had a screen freeze or something like that, because when it returned to him, he returned suddenly back onto the track, but on the grass down the home straight, and then spins off into the pit wall, and that was the end of Tim Holgate's race.
Ah, those little connection issues will kill you every time. Well, that's one of the things about simulated racing that's, you know, it's a plus and a minus. I mean, the reality of it is somewhat different than the reality of real-life racing, but these cars are extremely reliable. You don't have those electronic glitches and those black box problems and those interesting little issues that the car has in real life, but you do have different issues. So, you know, while people, you know, like to play the blame game as to why things, you know, connections go bad and ISPs are problems and it's this person's fault or it's this company's fault, you know, in the reality of it is these cars have electrical problems, but I basically pretend if I have a computer problem, then it's really just a problem with the car that I just have to work on and correct. So, you know, there's a lot of sort of simulated reality with your connection that can be sort of equated to your real life car or real life race situation. So it's, you know, it's just one of those things you have to learn to deal with.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more with that one actually. I know whenever I've retired due to kind of failures, I've always then twisted it on my website blog that I've got for my racing career and my team that I run, about how something went wrong technically, and we'll be working hard to make sure that it's improved for the next race. I know it's all a little bit of fun simulated reality, but it was all part of the experience.
Oh, absolutely. I've had all sorts of interesting things happen. Your pedals tip over, your wheel comes unloosed from the table that it's clamped to, the cat jumps into your lap, or you have a glitch, you know, or somebody's checking their Facebook status on the computer next door to you on your wireless connection. So there are all sorts of little things that we have that real life drivers don't have to deal with, but they, you know, it's a fun thing to sort of pretend sometimes like you do.
I think the funniest situation I've been involved with was I was busy in a battle on the last lap with someone, and I was so excited and so into my racing, I was sweating, and I wear glasses. I was sweating so much my glasses slid off my nose and I couldn't see where I was going, and I went off into the barriers.
That's very good. Let's jump back and take a look at Richard Thaler, who is now in all of that traffic that Gregor Huttu had just got around. He's back up with Richard Crozier. Richard Crozier says something to him on the radio. Probably going to let him by fairly easily as they go around bridge and into Priory. Let's take a look at this. Richard Thaler in that bright orange Whiskey River car, which is sponsored by Dale Earnhardt's Bar, located down in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yep, there he goes. Richard smartly lets Richard by.
Really had to negotiate a massive amount of traffic over the last couple of laps, and it's worked well actually for Towler. He's down to 4.7 seconds behind Gregor Huttu. Well, it's just now extended to 5.3, but he's still net gained overall.
So let's see, who is he behind now? That looks like, is that Ryan Murray? No, it's not. That's a car that's actually 2 laps down.
It's Andrea Baldi, who's bent over backwards all race to let everyone through, much to the detriment of his own race, because he's now running. Is Andrea running plumb last? Nope, 26th out of the 29 still running.
Well, Andrea may have hit something. You know, that's one of those things. He may have gotten tied up early in maybe the lap 1 incident or something like that. That was kind of a problem. So one of the things that is modeled quite well is suspension damage in these. If you tap something even just a little bit, you can bend your suspension, and what that ends up happening is, like, instead of your wheel being perpendicular to the floor or your hands being perpendicular to the floor when you're going straight ahead, is your wheel can be cocked as much as 10, 20, I've seen 30 and 40 degrees of wheels turned sideways, trying to just keep the car on the road. So, you know, good for him for staying out there and getting out of people's way as quickly as he could. But if he's got a damaged car, I just can't imagine. Andrea Baldi has been on the pace in races past, so I would suspect there's a problem with his car. So we've got 5 laps to go. Gregor Huttu still out in front. 6 to go. Check that. How many upset? Check that, I believe, 3 times now tonight. Richard Thaler in second. Ilka Happel in third. Sean Purdy in fourth. Dion Vergers in fifth. So and some of our track spotters look around to find us some action to look at and talk about. Let's once more mention before the race is over to go check out iRacing.com. If you're not a member already, you should be, because you're obviously been this far in the race. You obviously have found enough interest in it to stick around for a while. You could check out PSR TV at twitter.com/PSR TV. You can follow all of the goings-on PSR TV. They're doing more than just this race. We did Intel Series this morning. We do the Oval Series on Tuesday nights, as well as a couple of special events that we have scheduled in the future. You can check all of that out on Twitter. Or if you would like to go to PSRTV.com and download and watch any of the prior races this season, any of the races that we've talked about. Brands Hatch, I would recommend to go take a look at if you get a chance. That was a race that created a whole bunch of challenges for Mr. Huttu. As our other commentators, Mr. Jack and Frosty Sinclair, are on assignment this week. Simon and I are filling in probably for the next few races.
We like to keep the seats hot and warm for them for when they come in and back. Also, actually, a quick update for when, I believe it was yourself, Tom, and me, when we done the fundraising race. Last time I checked out on where we'd got to, iRacing, that whole unit had gone well over the $7,000 mark. So congratulations to everyone and thank you for donating.
Yeah, that was the Livestrong Foundation Brickyard 400, the top split of that. That was fantastic, where all of us broadcasters donated our monies to that. So PSR TV had a good, healthy chunk of change that Ian was able to donate to Livestrong, which has actually helped him out. Or was that you, I believe?
It was me.
So our entire PSR TV crew had a good time working the Brickyard 400 as us two road racing blokes got to watch some oval racing, which was kind of fun. So with 3 laps to go, Gregor Huttu still out in the lead. Nothing has changed in the top 5.
So there's been a few drivers that have popped themselves up the order so far today. Some of them a little bit unnoticed compared to others. A shout out for Richard Crozier, who's moved up from 15th position, considering he started a rather shocking 28th on the grid. But he's moved up a good 13 places, so good on for Richard Crozier. I think he's going to have the highest riser so far.
We take a look at as we take a look at Andrea Baldi back there. This is a battle for 26th, I believe. Him and Mark Payne. Both of these drivers are 2 laps down, but they are fighting like they're fighting for first place. You know, sometimes it's just fun to drive. You know, you may want to finish as well as you can, but just getting out there and fighting with these guys is just good practice. Oh yeah, look at that side by side as they go into Abbey.
That was a great move on the brakes there by Andrea Baldi. Last of the late breakers down into Club and so on out into the Abbey corner. He's got it covered, and Mark Payne is going to have to try and get back through, probably down into our first turn of the lap.
So Gregor Huttu flashes across the line. The next time by, he will get the white flag, and it looks like he will go 14 for 14, although now he cannot claim the perfect record of every single pole position this season.
First dent and chink in the armour.
And we've sort of seen Richard Towler come on a 10th here and a 10th there during qualifying. And I'm not really as surprised as I thought I would be that Richard Towler actually took the pole away from him. And that being said, Gregor Huttu is not going to finish 20, 30, or 40 seconds out in front of Towler this time.
Currently at the moment it's just 5.7 seconds. And even Ilka Hapler are only 17 seconds back. Sean Purdy's 20 back, and Dion Verges is 37. So that's more back to where we expect people to be.
Yeah, well, that's going to be really good. Once again, Ben Cornett's now back in 9th position. That's a big story, is that Ilka Hapler is going to solidly take 3rd place from Ben Cornett in the point standings. He's going to finish, let's see, a good, looks like 25 or so points. With 21 points ahead of Ben Cornett. So Ilka Hapler actually having a fantastic race, 2 races in a row. It'll be good to see his race recap on the forums later on, just to find out, because he had a 2nd place in Road America 2 weeks ago, and now he's running for 3rd place here today. Running 7 top 5s already this season and 10 top 10s. So it's a very good run for Ilka Hapler, one of PSR TV's producers.
And Gregor Huttu there on his penultimate lap has just set the fastest lap of the race of a 1:30.521, so that might be a little bit of a depressing memento for everyone else to look on.
So as Gregor Huttu heads down Farm Straight into Abbey, he's going to head down Bridge Turn for the final time into the Priory Brooklands Luffield complex. Gregor Huttu is going to make it 15 for 15. Oh, check. Sorry about that. That's going to be 14 for 14.
There's a prediction.
It's a Freudian slip, I believe is what they call it. So let's watch Gregor Huttu win in Silverstone. Richard Towler is going to finish at once again in 2nd place at 6 seconds back. maintaining his second place, his solid second place in the points. Gregor Huttu now 14 for 14. But Richard Thaler is closing the gap. We'd like to see Richard Thaler win one before the end of this season. Ilkka Happila comes across in third. Looks like his teammates Sean Purdy and Dion Vergers are going to be third, fourth, and fifth. And Jesse Nieminen is not going to give it up for Dion Vergers. Let's see who's going to get scored here at the very end. And he did. Jesse gets fifth place over Dion Vergers, spoiling 3 in a row for Team Orion. Blake Townend in seventh. Brad Davies. We're looking for, there's Blake Townend coming across the line. Brad Davies. Ben Cornett is going to take a ninth place. It's not going to do his point standings very good. Dion Vergers says he missed a gear.
Well, I have to say, looking forward, not necessarily for this season, but the following season, I think Jesse Nieminen is going to be one of our new latest chargers to be looking out for. Kind of like the sim racing's version of maybe a certain Sebastian Vettel.
I would agree. So let's run through the rest of the order here. Darren Marsh was 11th, Matteo Calistani in 10th, Ian Lake 13th, Ryan Murray in 14th. So Ian Lake at some point got around Ryan Murray. Ryan Murray, the head of Team Podium Assault. Ian Lake, one of the members of Team Podium Assault. Richard Crozier in 15th. Good run from him. Jake Sturgis, Jake the Steak in 16th. David Surwa in 17th. Matt Sintel in 18th. Florian Goddard, his failed one-stop strategy ended him in 19th for the day. Gerd Hoffra in 20th.
Mauro Bisegli rounded up 21st, which is a shame after running 8th and doing so well high on, but just went backwards. John Prather 22nd. Paul Richards 23rd, which is good for him. I think that's probably his first race that he's been qualified for. It's not a name that I've seen before. 2 laps Dane Real Falla after a bit of a messy second half of a race. 24. Dave Hoffman 25. Andrea Boldi got 26th off of Mark Payne and held it in the end. George Sandman was 28th. Also 2 laps down, and the last runner and rider home, and it's just dawned on me where I say that from now. Jan Ziliakis was 29th. Our retirements, Tim Holgate crashed it out into the wall, 11 laps down. Alice Simunek, Daniel Almeida, Brian Heitkotter, and Milos Miokovic all either disconnected or crashed out very early on.
So, with that, we complete our 14th race of the season, 14 of 18. In 2 weeks' time, we will be at the famed Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but we will be on the road course this time. 2 weeks, September 5th, 2010. Also, remember that on Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock is the NASCAR iRacing Drivers World Championship for the Oval, sponsored by NASCAR, and it is a fantastic series. Richard Thaler currently leading that series. So he will get out of this car and jump into his oval car and practice for that race as well. Make sure you check out PSR TV at Twitter, twitter.com/PSR TV. You'll see the schedule. Go to PSRTV.com. You can download this race and all the races from both series. Some of our special event races. If you weren't up at 7 o'clock this morning to watch our Intel GP Masters event, you can definitely take a look at that. That's a fantastic race that Richard Thaler was able to pull it out in front of Gregor Huttu and keep it there the entire race.
No,
so definitely
maybe say something about.
So if you like what you saw, if you're interested in checking it out, if you're new to this, you stuck around the entire race, you should certainly be interested enough to go to iRacing.com. Check it out. There's a $5 startup special for you. There are a couple of specials going on. So on behalf of the entire PSR TV crew, Simon Smith, Chuck Johnson, Ian Bushing, and Zach on the cameras, my name's Tom Beatty. We'll see you next time on PSR TV.